I am Sue, Robert's wife. I just woke up lying in a hospital bed. I see that both my legs are broken and in casts. I can hear Robert talking in the hall. I can't understand what they are saying, but I guess it is about what care I will need when he takes me home. I know Robert will take good care of me. He always has. Ever since that day in the restaurant. While I wait for Robert to get finished with the doctors, I'll tell you about us. I was sitting in a Waffle House staring at a cup of coffee. Yesterday I had gotten my dream job, being a high school teacher at the high school where I had graduated. I start in the fall. I should be happy, right? Well, this morning I took an EPT. The little blue plus showed up. Yeah, I am pregnant. Let's go back a few years. I graduated high school as a virgin. I had worked my back off and received a scholarship. Not to Ole Miss or even Mississippi State. The University of Southern Mississippi. I packed up and drove down to Hattiesburg. I was still a virgin when I started my second year. Okay, let me clarify something. If you went out with me and showed me a good time and I really liked you, well, you might get a hand. This had been going on since my senior year in high school, so I had seen a number of Johnsons. Different sizes and shapes, but always white. It was my sophomore year when I got a call to come home. My brother, who was 6 years older than me and in the Army, had been killed. He was in a country called Vietnam, somewhere in the Mekong Delta. The body arrived 2 days after I got home. Mom wanted to see him. The funeral director would not unseal the casket. Mom was hysterical. We had to call a doctor to give her something to calm her down so she could attend the funeral. I stayed a week, but I had to get back to school. Just before Easter, Dad found her dead. The doctor said she died of something known as broken heart syndrome. At the funeral, I noticed Dad had taken to drinking a lot. This was not normal for him, but I just wrote it off as his way of dealing with the grief. I stayed 2 days, but I had to get back to school. Finals were coming up. I decided to stay at school that summer and take some classes that would allow me to graduate early. I should have gone home and been with my dad. It was just after the 4th of July that I got a call from the sheriff's office. I needed to come home. Dad had taken a shotgun, put it under his chin, and blew his brains into the attic. The day of the funeral, I contacted a lawyer. I put him in charge of selling the house and everything in it that I did not want. After the mortgages, the real estate broker, and the lawyer were paid, I barely got $10,000. I went back to school. But something was different. I was different. Maybe it was the guilt. I should have stayed and helped Mom deal with losing her only son. Then Dad. Who knew he was so depressed? If I had stayed, maybe. I was sitting in the library trying to concentrate on what I was reading when Jamal sat down beside me. Jamal Atkins is a black football player. Everybody knows him. He starts with his line of nonsense, and I am thinking, why not? He wants to know if I would like to drive down to the beach. I know what that means. He is tall and not bad looking, so I pack up my books and go get in his car. It was a big '98 Oldsmobile. We get to the beach and roll the windows down so we can hear the waves. It is relaxing. Before long, I am kissing my first black man. His hands played with my body, and I was getting excited. He stopped and reached into the glove box and took out a lighter and a hand-rolled cigarette. He lit it and inhaled deeply, then offered it to me. I knew better, but what the hell? Maybe this would help. After a few tokes on that joint, I was high as a kite. My clothes were off now. Things were getting crowded in the front seat, so we got in the back. His pants were off and my hand was inside his boxers, doing the deed. It did hurt at first, but that quickly passed. Then I came to the pleasure. Maybe it was the smoke, or maybe it was the guilt flowing out of me, I do not know. But whatever it was, I felt better than I had in months. That started my affair with Jamal. Now it was not love. It was never love. It was just fun. About a month into it, we double dated with a friend of his. After dinner, we ended up at this friend's house. He had some good smoke. Somebody suggested we swap partners. That was my second man. About a month before Jamal was to graduate, we were at his apartment watching the draft. Of course, there was more smoke. I noticed I was the only girl, and before I knew what was going on, I was naked and on my knees. With maybe 5 guys I really don't remember. I saw Jamal one more time after that. He told me he heard what his friends had done to me and he was really sorry. He had passed out, so he did not participate. I believed him. My roommate had warned me about getting a reputation for dating black guys, especially those who dreamed of being professional athletes. Very few would make it, and I would end up pregnant and a single mom living with a half-black baby in Mississippi. She made a lot of sense. Jamal left for who knows where, and I did not date for almost a whole semester. Then one of the frat boys asked me out. He was handsome, and he took me to expensive restaurants and even a concert. I liked dating a guy with money. It was fun. There was no playing in the back seat of a car on the beach. He got a room with a view of the beach. We spent a weekend there, and I really enjoyed myself. The next week was a party at the frat house. Maybe I had too much to drink, or maybe somebody put something in my drink. I never knew. What I do know is that I had the time of my life. It was fun, and unlike the time I had with all of Jamal's friends, I remembered everything. The next morning, I did my walk of shame through the house, but it was different. All the men who were awake were so nice. One even took me to a restaurant and bought me breakfast before taking me back to my dorm. I loved dating those frat boys. I became a fixture at the house. They always made sure I had everything I wanted or needed. This went on for the next 2 years. I pulled trains. This brings me to that day at the Waffle House. I found out I was pregnant, so I called my boyfriend. He told me not to worry, he would get me an abortion. I don't believe in abortion. I want to get married and start a family. He actually laughed. There is not one of us who would marry a woman like you. We all have our lives planned out and you would never fit in. Get the abortion and get over it. He hung up the phone. Like I said, I was staring at my coffee when Robert walked in. Sue, I was so sorry to hear about your family. While I was not one of your brother's friends, I knew him and he was a good guy. I knew Robert from high school. He was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He asked to sit down and I motioned for him to sit. What's wrong, Sue? You look like your dog just died. Like I said, he is not the sharpest. But I decide to tell him. Lies, of course. Robert, I am in trouble. A couple of months ago, I was drugged and by a bunch of frat boys at school. I just found out I am pregnant. I am supposed to start teaching at the high school in the fall. How is that going to look? An unwed pregnant woman teaching kids? They'll fire me for sure. I gave him my pitiful face. What about an abortion? He asked. I could never do that to a child. The father? He asked. I have no idea who he is. That was the truth. Well, the way I see it, you need a husband, and that baby needs a father. I wanted to shout something sarcastic like, obviously genius. But I kept quiet. I wanted to see where this was going. I've known Robert my whole life. I was a year ahead of him in school, but I knew who he was. He lived on a farm outside of town by the river. He never played sports and barely passed high school. I heard he joined the Marines after he graduated. He reached across the table and took my hand. Sue, I always thought you were beautiful. To be honest, I dreamed about you a lot over the years. I even named my rifle Sue. You know, maybe we could start dating. Then we run off and get married. You tell everybody I got you pregnant. I live with my mom out on the farm. You could move in with us and start teaching. When the baby is born, Mom would help you and take care of it while you teach. I know you don't love me, but you might learn, don't you think? Is this guy for real? That stupid idea of his might work. It would solve all my problems. Besides being pregnant, I was about broke. The money I had received when my father died had been spent on graduate school. My scholarship was only for my first 4 years. I don't know about learning to love him, but I knew I could have him with no problem. Robert would be no problem. So to make a long, boring story short, that's what we did. I told all my girlfriends I was dating Robert and how I had fallen in love with him. Lie. Robert told all his friends how much he loved me. Truth. One day we ran off together and got married. It was not much of a honeymoon. We married in Florida and spent 3 days in a hotel on the beach. Then it was home to live with Mama. Robert farmed and I started school. It was during Christmas break that our little girl was born. By February, I was back teaching. Life was good. I had very little to do with the farm. I just concentrated on teaching and taking care of the little baby girl. She was adorable. Robert's mother was such a wonder. She helped with everything and taught me a lot about caring for a baby. Robert was a good lover and I was satisfied with my life. Maybe too satisfied. One morning I was throwing up. Robert's mother said I should see a doctor. She thought I might be pregnant again. This was not in the plan. 8 months later, the twin boys were born. I had my tubes tied. Robert's mom and I had become close. I called her mom. So it was a great shock when she did not come down for breakfast. She had passed in her sleep. I think I took it harder than Robert. But I shook it off and went back to work. Robert hired a lady from a nearby church to help with the kids and the housework. She showed up every morning in her old truck and prepared breakfast. She helped with the babies while I got dressed for work. Then when I got home, she had supper ready. She was truly a godsend. I had taken over as the assistant principal of the high school when he retired. I was in line to be principal. Part of my job was to handle the salesmen who called on the schools to sell everything from books to cleaning products. That's when it started. One day, this nice-looking man from New York called at the school with a new line of books. Instead of telling him it would be a couple of years before we even started looking at purchasing new books, I invited him to lunch. I took him across town to a restaurant near his motel. Things progressed until I found myself in bed with him. Looking back, I would think that I liked it because I was cheating. I was in a motel room with a strange man from out of town. That was more exciting than the intimacy. But if that was true, why did I take his call the next morning and agree to meet him after school for another round? Who knows? But I went. I expected another call the next day, and I had told myself I was not going again. But the call never came. In fact, I never heard from him again. I was a good girl for almost 6 months. In fact, I had promised myself that I was not going to cheat again. I mean, what was the downside if I was caught? Robert would divorce me, I am sure. I might even lose my job. Robert had lots of friends in the county. I was at a teachers' conference in a town about 2 hours from where we lived. The conference ended early, and I was on my way home when I saw that I needed gas. I pulled into one of those self-service stations and was trying to get the pump to start. I was getting frustrated when this man walked up and offered to help. Of course, he had it working in seconds. As he filled my tank, I looked at him and yes, I got the itch. There was a coffee shop inside and I invited him for a cup. He did not refuse. Less than an hour later, I am again on my back with a strange man. Like I said, it is the situation that gets me off. I am in a strange town, in a cheap motel with this strange man. As I got dressed, he told me he was a mechanical engineer. He worked for Ford and did seminars at different dealerships in the area. He was very smart, unlike Robert, and I enjoyed talking to him. He was from Michigan and came to this part of the country about once a month. Perfect. I gave him my number at school, not my home phone, and surely not my home address. I told him I was married. He was not. Sure enough, about 5 weeks later I got a call. He was close and wanted to meet. Why not? I called home and told Minnie I would be late, something about a meeting I had to attend. I met him at the hotel where he was staying. This happened 2 more times, then I never heard from him again. I figured he probably met someone new or was assigned to a different territory. No big loss. Summer came and Robert was working on this new project. It was going to make us a fortune. Something with soybeans, I think. Who knows what this guy is doing? The only way he is going to make a fortune is if he finds the Holy Grail. And if he did, he would probably sell it for junk. Sometimes I wonder why I am still with him. We have started arguing all the time, usually about the stupidest things. How did this guy pass high school? And what did the Marines teach him? Like I said, it was summertime, July to be exact. When the principal called me into his office, he wanted to introduce me to the new football coach. It was Jamal Atkins. Yes, that Jamal. My first. Jamal rose from his chair and extended his hand. Thank God. It would be a problem if we had hugged and kissed in front of my boss. After introductions were made and his duties spelled out, I was asked to show him around. We walked over to the gym where his office was located. Jamal, thanks for not letting on that you know me in front of my boss. Jamal shut his office door and locked it. I flew into his arms. My kisses left no doubt where this was going to end up. We used the couch there in his office. On the drive home, I realized this was different from my other two affairs. I got off on the intimacy, not the cheating. I knew this would not be the only time, but I also knew we would have to be very careful. Something like this could cost us both our jobs and my marriage. It did continue. We did it in his office a couple more times. Then football practice started. There were way too many kids around to chance someone seeing us. He suggested meeting at his house. He gave me the address and I drove by on my way home from school. It was a nice house in a nice subdivision. The best part was it had a double garage. I could pull my car inside and no one would know I was there. Told you I am smart. We met there a couple of times after school when he could get away from practice. I just told Minnie I had a meeting or was helping a child. Robert was always working on whatever. One morning, Robert told me he was going to be late getting home. Something about, hell, I don't even remember what the jerk said. I called Minnie and told her I would be late. Another meeting. I met Jamal after he finished practice, and in minutes we were in bed. I figured we had until 8 p.m. Robert had said he would be home around 10 p.m., so that would give Jamal and me plenty of time. Lying next to Jamal after our grand finale, I realized I was in love. Jamal said he loved me also. I went to sleep thinking I was going to figure out a way we could work this out. I woke up at 10:30. Damn, I have to get home. No time for a shower. I jump up and put my clothes on. Jamal is not helping. He just lays there and grins at my dilemma. Finally, I am in the car and on my way. I am going over all the scenarios and lies I can tell Robert when I feel it. Jamal's pint of pleasure ran out of me. It is going to stain my clothes seats. Robert will see it. I unsnapped my seatbelt and rose up in the car. I am using my skirt to try to wipe myself when I look up. Tree! So that's my story. Robert is walking back into the room. I see tears in his eyes. Robert, it is not that bad. I will get better soon, you just watch and see. He sits in the chair beside my bed and takes my hand. Robert, what's wrong? How are the babies? I asked. He does not answer me, but he starts talking, so I listen. Sue, I have loved you for so long. I think I fell for you in grade school. I know you were my fantasy girl all through high school. I just never thought you would consider going out with me. I mean, you were so smart and me. Well, I barely passed. Even during the hard times while in the Marines, I thought about you. I loved you and always have, and I guess I always will. Even when I caught you cheating, I still loved you. What? You knew about... I started to say. He did not let me finish. That book salesman. You should have seen the look on his face when I stepped into his motel room. I told him who I was before I shot him. He was going to explain, I guess. I did not want to hear anything he had to say. Robert, I am so sorry, but he was the only one, and it was just that one. I started to reply. Again, he just kept talking. I imagine he did not want to hear any more lies. Then that guy who did those seminars for Ford. You had just left, and I could smell your perfume in the room. He was braver than the salesman. He ran at me, but he died also. Oh God, Robert, what have you done? Let me help you make this right. Maybe you can call... Again, he does not wait for me to finish. I don't know if they play the television for you while you have been in your coma, but if they do, I am sure you heard the news. The high school is looking for another football coach. It seems Jamal disappeared a couple of days after your wreck. You have probably figured it out by now. I mean, you are the smart one. Does 3 make me a serial killer? I'll have to ask someone about that. I am screaming at the top of my lungs, but nobody is hearing me. Sue, I want you to know that I think you were a lousy wife but a great mother. I will always remind the kids of you, and we will pray for you every night. They will never know the truth about their mother." 2 nurses come into the room. "I am sorry, Mr. Barnes, but it is time." "Of course I understand. She will not be in any pain, will she?" he asked the nurse. "No, she will not feel a thing. The transplant surgeons who will be harvesting her organs will make sure of that." "Sue, wait a minute. Harvesting my organs? What the hell are you talking about? Why is no one answering me? This is a nightmare. Wait. I am awake. I woke up a few minutes ago. Wait." From the perspective of Robert. I buried Sue the first week of October. It was pretty sad, but the kids were too young to really know what was going on. I did not grieve for her. Actually, I did not have the time. I was very busy. Minnie, my housekeeper, took care of them while I got busy harvesting my beans. That is what brings me here to the Waffle House, the same one where I proposed to Sue. I have just come from the brokerage where I sold my beans. I have a notebook in front of me and I am trying to figure out if I made any money on the beans. Like I have said, I am horrible at math. I could never figure out where the decimal goes or what to do with the zeros. After my 3rd try, I lay my pencil down in disgust and take a sip of coffee. "What you working on so hard, Bobby?" "Math, what else?" I replied. "Let me see if I can help." She picked up my pencil and turned the notebook towards her. "Who is she?" "Well, this is Amy. I have known her my whole life. She always helped me with my homework. Probably the reason I graduated high school." "Okay, Bobby, tell me the problem," she asked. "I planted 1,250 acres of soybeans this year. I averaged 90 bushels of beans per acre. The broker is paying me $20 a bushel. I want to know if I made money or not." "Well, do you know your seed and fertilizer costs?" she asked. "Including diesel, I figure it was about $75,000 total." "That seems low. How much was your labor cost?" she asked. "I did all the work myself. Sometimes I planted in the dark using lights on the tractor. Same with the harvesting and hauling, I did everything myself." "That was a lot of work." "I got it done," I replied. "Bobby, you better be glad I am a CPA. I am going to have to find a lot more costs, or you are going to owe the government a ton of money." "Thanks, Amy. I know I can count on you. You always had my back." "If that is the truth, why did you not listen to me when I told you about Sue? I was in southern Mississippi with her. I saw what she was doing and I told you the day after you proposed to her. You knew Bobby. You knew who she was and what she was, yet you married her anyway. You, of all people, should remember how big a crush I had on her. When she started telling me about how she was raped, resulting in her being pregnant, I saw an opportunity and I took it. That little girl is so cute, and she is a daddy's girl, that's for sure," she answered. "The boys are mine. I am sure of it. I was the one who fooled around with her birth control and got her pregnant. Speaking of those boys, we better get home. Mama will need help getting them ready for bed." By now, some of you have figured out that Amy, Minnie's daughter, is black. You got that, right? Well, something I left out was that Linda, Amy's sister, is the school secretary. She answered all calls that came into the school. She also made sure when teachers, like Sue, took off early, their classes were covered. She called her mama, Minnie, and told her where Sue was going, like when she went to lunch with the book salesman. Of course, Minnie got in touch with me to tell me what was going on. I tracked her to the restaurant and then to the motel. The very next day, when Linda transferred his call to Sue, she kept the line open and listened in as Sue made a date for that afternoon. I had no idea about the first meeting with the Ford engineer. How could I? But a month later, he called the school to tell her where to meet him. Again, Minnie alerted me after Linda called her. Now you are probably asking why I had to kill them. I knew Sue was not in love with me. I was just a stopgap for her, meaning when she found something better, she was going to divorce me. We live in a no-fault state. With 3 kids, she would have taken me to the cleaners. I would lose the farm that had been in my family for generations. I could not let that happen. Now you want to know what I did with the bodies. If you must know, Minnie helped. Why? Minnie's family had worked for my family for years. They planted cotton using mules before we switched to tractors. Minnie's two girls were the first who did not work as household help. Minnie made sure of it by keeping them in school so they could get good jobs. Linda is the school secretary, and Amy is a CPA. Not bad for two black girls from the rural South in the 60s. Enough history, let's go back to Minnie helping me with the bodies. She came into my den, where I keep my guns, as I was packing up to go after the book salesman. "You going to kill him?" she asked. "That's the plan. Stay in the room until after dark, then load him in the back of your truck and bring him home. I'll handle the rest." "What should I do with his rental car?" I asked. "Watch out the window. When Rufus gets there, give him the keys. He'll take it to his chop shop and it will disappear. Now get along and do what you have to do." I did, and it worked, just like Minnie said. When I arrived back at the house with the body, she helped me put it in a freezer she had emptied out in the basement. She locked the freezer and kept the key. I never let on to Sue that her lover was sleeping in a freezer under our bedroom. It stayed there for about 2 weeks. One day, Minnie told me that an old lady who attended her church had died. That meant that I would be digging a grave. My dad had started that years ago when he bought a backhoe. I continue that practice even today. Minnie told me to dig it about 4 feet deeper than normal. I was almost finished when she and Amy arrived with the frozen body. It got dumped into the grave and I covered it up. The next day, the casket with the old lady was placed on top of him. Problem solved. The engineer was handled the same way. He spent almost a month in the freezer before a member of the church died. Jamal was a different story. He was barely frozen when Samuel Junebug Adams died. He had been the janitor at the county courthouse for 50 years. Everybody called him Junebug because he had this habit of catching June bugs in the summertime and tying thread to one of their legs. He would hold the thread like a leash and the bugs would fly around him. Sometimes you would see him with 3 or 4 bugs flying all around him, therefore the nickname Junebug. Junebug was well known and well liked, so there were a lot of people at his funeral. I attended with Minnie and her daughters. Now, some of you listening to this may think I was lucky to get away with 3 murders all those years ago. I always told my 6 kids, I'd rather be lucky than smart. 6 kids, 3 with Sue and 3 more with Amy, of course. One last thing. Sue always asked me what the Marine Corps taught me, and I never answered her. The answer is, they taught me to kill people and I was damn good at it. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.